Hello friend, welcome to my garden. It's 40 feet by 40 feet or 1,600 square feet. I'm located in Southern California and I call my garden RanchoReiso. So today is August 22nd, 2016, and I look forward to showing you around my garden. It's technically summer, but it's really the end of summer. Most of the schools, including my kids' schools, start this week, and trees are starting to change color. My garden is starting to look like fall. I've harvested some stuff. Other stuff are really starting to come into their own. So I look forward to giving you my garden tour and sharing some of the things that have happened here in the last month. Make yourself comfortable, pop some organic popcorn, and enjoy. So throughout summer, I picked a lot of great vegetables. I'd bring them into the house, wash them, and cut them up for plates, sharing with the family. And so I'll show you some of those throughout this video. Here in my east quadrant, throughout the months of July and early August, it was all about the tomatoes, but those are mostly played out. So I'm planting some squash. This is Big Mac's pumpkin right here. And then you can see my volunteer sweet potatoes, Molokai purple. And around the corner I've planted blue Hubbard squash, I've planted patty pan and green zucchini. But a note about the tomatoes, I originally purchased 12 plants, of which 8 made it into production. Of those 8, 6 were heirlooms, but the 2 hybrids were really the most vigorous and most productive plants. So while I prefer heirlooms to save seeds, there's something to be said about these hybrids too and their vigor. This here is indigo kumquat, and with this bumper crop, I cut them in half, salted them, and you can see I've got some of those red sugar lumps mixed in as well, our Camp Joy, and I sun-dried them. I put them in racks protected with screens so that insects wouldn't get on them, and within about a week I had some great sun-dried tomatoes. The second hybrid tomato I grew this year was Golden San Marzano, and I made a tomato sauce. Come on into the kitchen and I'll show you how I did it. I started with some of my homegrown garlic, and then I cut up a bunch of the Golden San Marzano tomatoes and put those in a blender. Then I added some of my homegrown oregano and blended those ingredients up into a fine puree. I put the contents of that into a pot, added some olive oil, stirred in, and simmered all of that down. It really took quite a long while to simmer down to a thick consistency that I liked. This is the first time I've ever made my own tomato sauce, and so I was surprised how long that slow simmer took. But eventually it reached the perfect consistency, and it was ready to go into the jars. In each of those jars, I put a little bit of organic lemon juice. So I filled all my sterilized jars with the tomato sauce, and eventually, when they were all full, I returned them into a hot water bath for about 15 minutes. So here in the south quadrant, up in front of us is a volunteer holy basil, or tulsi, which I make great tea from. And then back here are golden wax bush beans. But the most prominent feature here in this quadrant is this ojo de cabra polebean, or eye of the goat, polebean curtain. The ojo de cabra throws off these pretty little purple-white flowers that eventually grow to nice beans, which are just starting to develop on my plants. On the other side of this quadrant, I have my herbs, primarily this holy basil, which I dry out, and chamomile, which I also dry out, and they're both wonderful, soothing teas. Here's a view of the quadrant from the backside. Ta-da! Here in the north quadrant, I'm pretty much harvested. All that remains is this single sunflower stalk and a few corn stalk in the back corner. But earlier this month, there was quite a bit of excitement and drama as I rushed to make a harvest. Alice noticed the trouble first. Petals on the ground. Petals and shells. And then we looked up. Someone has been eating our sunflowers. Both immature and mature flowers. Some of the flowers had been almost entirely eaten up. And then the evidence, a rat poop on one of the flowers. It was time to jump into action. Fortunately, I had already harvested my Mongolian giant flower heads before the rats struck. So I chopped down those flower stalks that the heads were already harvested from. We were about to leave on a week-long vacation, so I harvested all flowers that were ready. But for those that were immature, I got desperate and thought that perhaps if I wrapped aluminum foil around the base of the stalk, the rats couldn't grip and get traction to climb up the stalk and eat the flower heads. I'm sure they were just laughing at this desperate attempt to save my sunflowers. My goats feasted on the abundance of leaves that came their way, and for those flower heads that I could harvest, I put them in a safe place to hang up and dry. How agile are the rodents? Well, if you look closely, midway up the sunflower, there's a rat, and he's going to leap off of the sunflower and scurry away. Adjacent to the new structure I built for my goats is where they used to live. It's predator-proof, and I dry out my sunflowers, and in these additionally predator-proof boxes, I dry out treasures like the corn. Here I have a tray of my Mongolian giant sunflowers dried out, and I'm removing the seeds, the biggest ones being around the edges. So I leave the center for my goats. Once I've removed the seeds, I blow away all the little flower bits to make sorting easier later. The girls love nibbling away at the flower heads and the remaining seeds at the center of the flower. Now, some crops that I'm drying that I don't worry about the rodents getting, I keep here in my shed. So let me show you what I got going on in here. I've got my carrot seed umbels drying. Got some holybasil, my herb that I use for tea, drying in here. The chamomile, hotpeppers, those kind of crops that I'm not worried about the rodents getting, I dry them in here in a dark area where they can all breathe, gets nice and warm, and so that's how I've been drying crops I'm not worried about the rodents getting. Although I've spent some time in this video talking about how I dealt with a rat infestation, the truth is that my garden is much more about working with nature than it is against it. My garden is home to bees and butterflies and earthworms. I have many different kinds of birds coming through, and occasionally I get to help out a larger critter. That was the case when I first saw this raccoon, who was in bad shape, on my neighbor's side of our property line. We had a string of many 100+ degree days, and this guy was clearly dehydrated, if not worse. So I lowered down to him a cup of water, which he quickly guzzled. Then I lowered down to him a half-gallon jug of water, which eventually this raccoon consumed most of, and I had hoped that he'd be gone the next day. Unfortunately, the next day, he looked a lot better, but hadn't left. So I gave him some more water and started to call animal rescue people. Nobody would come and pick him up, and one person gave me the guidance that I might want to try feeding him some wet dog food if I had any, which I did. Well, I lowered that wet dog food down to this raccoon and he ate it right up. And I'm happy to report the next day the raccoon was gone and I haven't seen him since. I like to think he climbed back up the tree where he lives and has told all of his friends and family about the nice guy with a big hat who nursed him back to health. Swing! We have lots of jackrabbits in our neighborhood. Here's one coming to check out the garden. He probably sees me now, probably sees there's a fence, and figures this isn't the time to come and inspect things. Bye, Mr. Rabbit. See you later. Here in the west quadrant, in the corner I have a dahlia plant that has yet to bloom the flowers. And I have probably 60 pepper plants here. I don't want to bore you with the pros and cons of every single variety, but I do want to touch on some of the highlights. So I have a variety of sweet peppers. These are orange bells, but I also have purple, green, chocolate, and those are great just to pick and munch straight up. So amongst my mildly hot peppers, I have several jalapeno plants, and I also have some Hungarian yellow wax. And together they preserve nicely when you can them, delicious, and they make great gifts. Ancho poblano are just mildly spicy, and they're great fresh and dried up. I have those crazy, super hot million Scoville peppers back in this corner of the garden, and they seem to take the longest to mature. I have the ghost pepper, or Boot Jaluka, Trinidad Scorpion Butch Tea strain, and the 7-pot Douglas. And on those plants I have green fruit hanging, but the peppers haven't really colored up and ripened just yet. Oh yeah! So over here near my pepper patch is where I have the cucumbers that grew on these weld wire trellises. Had a great season with cucumbers. I have 5 different varieties, but as you can see, the vines are starting to come to the end of their season. Leaves are starting to turn golden, some of the vines are starting to brown. But as many plants do, as you reach the end of the season, the plants want to give you one last bumper crop. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get that last harvest, and then I'll probably take down all of these cucumber vines and replant the area for something more fall. Swing! So one of the cool things I have going on in the garden right now is that my carrots have produced flowers. They're behind me, and the flowers are where we'll get carrot seed. So some of those flower heads or umbels have dried out to the point that I can now harvest some seed, and let's show you how that's done. So over here at my carrot flowers, if we look down here, you can see that huge carrot down at the base, and up from it has grown all of these heads with seeds. Now you can see some of the heads are still kind of this light white color, and then they turn this greenish color, eventually turning more brown. And when they start turning brown like this, they're getting close to the point where they're ready to harvest. You can see some of these seeds back here are a nice shade of brown. And here was the one that matured first, and I'm going to show you how we're going to take some seeds off of this flower head or umbel, which I'll be planting next season. So if you look at this carrot head, this flower, which is, I put it in a pan like this in my warm shed. People also put them in brown paper bags until they're completely dried out and the seeds actually turn a darker color. You can see I can break off one of these little flowers and just break off all the seeds from the stem. And toss the stem out. And again, simply break the flower apart and kind of using your fingertips, break off the seeds. Now when you look closely at carrot seed, the seeds have these little hooks that in nature allow the seed to attach to animals and be spread around for germination. But to remove them, all you have to do is rub the seeds between your finger and let those hooks blow away in the breeze, and the seeds, which are heavier, will fall back into your pan. All right, my friends, there it is, my August 22nd or end of summer garden tour here at RanchoReiso. I hope you enjoyed. I'm wrapping up from within my little cave of Ojo de Cabra polebean. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Watch some of my other videos. Take it easy.